Lando Norris just locked in a new deal with McLaren, keeping him with the team for the long haul. So all those talks about him jumping ship to rival teams, consider them done and dusted. Interestingly, despite Red Bull openly eyeing him, Norris chose to stay put at McLaren. Now, some of you are probably scratching your heads, thinking, why pass up the chance to drive for a team that could provide a championship-winning car? Well, some might say it's because Lando was actually afraid of partnering with Max Verstappen. But is that the truth? No, sir. Norris has had enough of these rumors, and he has finally made an official statement, sharing his real thoughts on Max. So, let's into the nitty-gritty of Norris's fresh McLaren contract, his unexpected thoughts on Verstappen, and why I'm convinced he's made the right call. Here's the thing. He was initially tied to McLaren until 2025, but this new deal stretches it out to at least the end of 2026. The team didn't exactly share how long Lando's new deal is, but here's what we know. He was on the radar of a bunch of other teams, yet he found it a no-brainer to stick with McLaren. Apparently, he's feeling more confident than ever about winning a world title with the Woking-based squad. And here's the backstory. Despite starting the 2023 season with one of the slowest cars, Norris and McLaren pulled off an impressive second half. Their turning point was a massive upgrade at the Austrian Grand Prix, the 9th race of the season. From there, Norris totally rocked it, finishing as the second highest scoring driver in the last 14 races, just behind the dominating Max Verstappen. And apart from that, there's also the emotional attachment. Norris sees McLaren as the team that gave him his shot in F1. It's like family to him. But what really sealed the deal was the team's turnaround under the new boss, Andrea Stella, who took the reins in December 2022. That transformation played a big role in convincing Norris to commit to a new deal early on. Recently, in a Friday news conference, Norris openly talked about how the team has seen some tough times over the last few years. And even though he still enjoyed it, he did occasionally question if McLaren was the right place to hit the next goal. Every driver goes through it, right? Is this where I can be my best? But luckily for McLaren, that's when things took a turn. With Andrea leading the charge, McLaren transformed, creating an environment that swung Norris's decision in their favor. And of course, the results played a role too. Norris explained that without McLaren's progress in 2023, he might have waited until 2025 to make a call about his future. Here's what he said. There are not many other things you can be guaranteed or assured of with any other team. So, it boiled down to where he'd be happiest and most confident about snagging that world championship. And this is his verdict. Now, I'm more confident than ever in saying it's going to be McLaren. Right now, McLaren is putting together a team centered around Lando, and people are applauding the move. Because let's face it, he's a standout driver among the current bunch of potential world champions, including George Russell and Charles Leclerc. Among them, Norris seems to be the most polished, and the general consensus in the sport is that he's the one most likely to make things happen. While McLaren were once regular championship contenders, they faced a bit of a slump in the past 15 years due to financial struggles. But guess what? That seems to be in the rearview mirror now, and they're on the rise again, which is exactly why we have this contract extension on our hands. Norris's previous contract could have let him walk away from McLaren just before the new technical regulations kick in for 2026. It was honestly a smart move. He would have had a good look at McLaren's plans for 26, and if he didn't like what he saw, he could have explored other options, possibly landing at Red Bull, Mercedes, or Ferrari. You know, the big three in the past decade. But by committing until at least the end of 2026, Lando is placing some real trust in the team. If McLaren nails the new regulations and Mercedes delivers a killer engine, Lando's in a sweet spot. His contract likely has a clause for easy extensions, maybe another 2 years. So, if McLaren is gunning for championships right off the bat, he's good to stay. But there's a catch. If McLaren isn't shining in the new regulations, Lando has the option to explore elsewhere. There's probably a performance-based break clause dated for December 2026. That gives him the freedom to seek a team where he can go after that title. Now, as far as Lando's concerned, he's feeling optimistic about McLaren's prospects. In fact, he sees them in the mix for race victories in 2024, but he's realistic about having to wait a bit for a championship challenge. It's a personal and team goal. With financial regulations leveling the playing field, teams like McLaren, Aston Martin, and Alpine aren't just hoping for the big teams to fail. The gap is closing, and everyone from the interns to the drivers knows it. These midfield teams are working hard, aiming for race wins on their own merit. As for the championship, Lando's being pretty real. He's not making any bold promises for the next couple of years. 2026 is an open opportunity for everyone on the grid. So the big question mark hangs there. Red Bull openly wanted him, and Max Verstappen even tossed in some charm, expressing his desire to race against Norris in the same machinery. However, being more convinced than ever that McLaren can provide him with a championship-worthy car, Norris doesn't view joining F1's current dominant force, Red Bull, as a necessary step to achieve his dreams. And no, he was never scared of having Verstappen as his partner. The truth is, Lando is good friends with Verstappen off the track, and he acknowledged Max as one of the best drivers in Formula One. He mentioned how Max Verstappen is in a team he's comfortable with, and many aspects are built around him. He also pointed out that going against the Max Verstappen of today would be extremely challenging, even for someone like Max from a few years ago. It's not about being scared, but rather the realistic assessment that entering a team and immediately challenging someone of Max's caliber may not be feasible or comfortable for any driver. I don't think it's a question of, are you scared or not scared? I don't think I would ever be scared of going up against anyone. But even if you enter a team, are you in a position to challenge someone straight away? And are you comfortable to do that? And I think it's a no for any driver. It takes time to adapt and takes time to get into place. Addressing social media and news speculations, Norris clarified that his decision to stick with McLaren over Red Bull has nothing to do with fear of going head-to-head with Max in the same machinery. It's a thoughtful and strategic consideration of the competitive landscape in Formula One. Now people have been bringing up examples like Hamilton facing Alonso at McLaren in his rookie season, Leclerc moving to Ferrari alongside Vettel, and Russell choosing to drive next to Hamilton at Mercedes. However, the context is different, and the comparisons don't hold up. In those cases, each driver was either a rookie or close to it, making their first move to a big team. Hamilton, for instance, was a rookie with McLaren, and no one expected him to be a world championship challenger at the time. Charles Leclerc was at Alfa Romeo, a backmarker team, and staying there wasn't an option when Ferrari offered him a promotion in only his second season. George Russell was at Williams, another backmarker team, and his only viable option for race wins and championships was with Mercedes. Norris, on the other hand, is already at the front of the grid. If he wants to challenge Verstappen, who just had the most dominant F1 season ever, he needs every advantage he can get. Moving to Red Bull means being in the same machinery, but dealing with a new and uncomfortable environment. Every interview would revolve around beating Verstappen, and every loss would trigger inquiries about why. It's not an ideal setting for peak performance, is it? Moreover, Verstappen would have familiarity with the car, his engineers, and his team, putting Norris at a disadvantage before the competition even begins. Going to Red Bull might offer occasional race wins, but a world championship might be out of reach there. So Lando stuck with McLaren not because he's scared, but because he wants all the best chances for winning. What do you think about his decision? Was it a smart move, or do you think the talk about being scared of Max Verstappen influenced him? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next video.